guardians of justice in the age of AI. Welcome to The Global Lawyer, the podcast where statutes meet algorithms and contracts meet code. This is where law, global business, and innovation come together for real insight. Today's discussion feels especially exciting. We're diving right into a topic at the center of technological change that affects all of us, and particularly law and finance: artificial intelligence. Now, before I introduce today's very special guest, who is not only a brilliant lawyer, but also a computer engineer and a capital markets expert and many other things, as you will see, let me warm things up with a quick analogy. I'm sorry, I can't resist. It's a bit of an occupational hazard. So here's the thing. When people say GPT, Claude, Gemini, they're talking about models, right? Think of them like our statute books. Huge, complex systems full of information and rules. Let's say the civil code or the corporation's law. Oh, and just a quick note. When I say statute, I don't mean estatuto in Portuguese, please. So that's just another part of my legal wiring. I can't help myself, but just statute means legislation, as you all know. Okay, but just like a statute book, a model on its own doesn't argue cases or advise clients. Now, when you hear names like ChatGPT, Perplexity, or Cloud AI, those are services. They are like law firms or courts. They take those raw statute books and make them usable. They add interfaces, filters, and practical ways for us to interact. That's why ChatGPT feels like you are having a conversation, while Perplexity feels more like some legal researcher who always brings citations to the table. So, to sum it up, models are the statute books of AI, and services, the law firms or the legal practitioners that make those books come alive for clients. And with that foundation in place, I hope I haven't stretched the analogy too far. But if I did, I'm in the safest possible hands here with our guest, because I couldn't think of anyone better to lead us through this rich terrain than Professor Isac Costa. It's really a pleasure to welcome someone who truly brings to life the idea of a modern think tank. If you could imagine intelligence, sharpness, and creativity rolled into one single person, someone who blends the precision of computer engineering, the solid foundation of corporate law and finance, a historian's grasp of capital markets, and keeps pace with every shift in crypto innovation, well, that person is Professor Isac Costa. He is recognized as a top legal mind in Brazil, a respected and beloved professor who also brings a wealth of real-world experience as a former analyst and advisor at the Brazilian Securities and Exchange Commission, the CVM. So he's been right at the heart of regulatory decision-making in the financial markets. With advanced degrees from the University of São Paulo and FGV, plus a technical background in computer engineering from ITA, yes, the Technological Institute of Aeronautics. I mean, how many lawyers do you know who also hold a degree in computer science? Come on, not many, right? So I would say that his career is a perfect example of what happens when multiple fields come together in innovative ways. But he is so much more than his impressive resume. Week after week, he shares thoughtful reflections on LinkedIn, dropping seeds of insight that challenge all of us to think more deeply about the possibilities and the challenges this brave new world throws our way. Every post sparks new conversations, crossing disciplines and generations, inviting professionals to pause, reflect, and dive into fresh ideas. Professor, it's an honor and a real treat to have you with us. And he is also my friend. I can say that. He is also my friend. I'm so happy to have you here. Welcome.
Well, thank you for the invitation, Marina, and thank you for this kind introduction. I hope I can meet the expectations and we can learn a lot together here and along with your listeners. Thank you very much.
Okay, that's absolutely. Let's now just cut through the hype, as you used to say. My first question is, what is your work? I think we can start from the beginning, right? That's why I'd like to know what is your working definition of artificial intelligence for legal professionals, especially those engaged in financial market.
Okay, so from the beginning, right? So the term artificial intelligence was coined in the 50s, and it's one of these catch-all terms that provides an illusion that we can really understand what it means, but it's just a fallacy. It's a very complex set of techniques. In one hand, it could be seen as a subfield of computer science in theoretical terms, but in practical terms, a functional definition could be a set of computer algorithms that try to mimic human cognition, meaning the ability to recognize natural language, sounds, image, to make plans, to make decisions, to identify patterns, and also to make predictions. All of these aspects, these facets of human cognition can be implemented through a set of algorithms. And these days, there are many techniques, and all of them are categorized under the label artificial intelligence.
Very interesting. Yes. So, yeah.
No, and you mentioned for lawyers, right? And for law professionals, I think that for us, probably we'll have the opportunity to go further in this conversation. But then for lawyers, I believe that the ability to process natural language is the most important aspect of artificial intelligence these days, right? For research, for drafting documents, for analyzing documents. But I believe that most lawyers are concerned that they are going to be replaced by AI. But I believe that this is not true. We will always have room for strategy, for negotiation, for some high-value services that, at least for now, there are no signs that in the near future, AI is going to cover that.
All right. Okay. So AI is just more like a tool to process data, automate tasks, and enhance decision making, but not direct or give you the answer.
Okay.
I think that in terms of because we have good news and bad news about the AI, and as you just said, because we are all worried about being replaced, but the good news would be that all of these development and all of that frees or liberates lawyers from being information processors and allow them to focus on unique human skills, because they are still, human skills, like you just said, professional judgment, ethical reasoning, creative problem solving, and so on and so forth. And now, building on that, if we move from definitions to practice, can you describe the key types of AI technologies currently shaping capital markets? And where do you see the biggest impact coming in the next few years?
Okay, so let's start with some basic definitions, so everyone is in the same page. I believe that right now you can even prompt your favorite AI tool to get these definitions from. I understand that you have you've prepared a glossary of terms yourself that probably is going to put in the description or something like that. But anyway, I believe that for the purpose of our conversation, it's important to start with the concept of the rule-based system, meaning it's like a recipe that you put ingredients and you always get the same result, right? With some minor variations, but if you follow the recipe strictly, you're going to get the same result. And on the other hand, if you put a person in, and it tastes like dozens or hundreds of plates with all possible variations, and then using his or her intuition, it creates a new dish. This is more like a machine learning systems rather than a rule-based system, okay? Meaning that in rule-based systems, you have to provide all the instructions of what needs to be done. And in machine learning systems, it's like learning by example. You don't work with certainty, you work with likelihood, okay? So even with the same input, you may not get the same result. You might not get the same result all the times. Okay, so this is the very first distinction that we need to understand. So computer algorithms, they are usually seen as deterministic, rule-based, but then once we evolved in terms of statistics and hardware processing capabilities, we were able to develop new kinds of systems that work on pattern recognition and work with this probabilistic approaches. So this is what machine learning is. So it's a major category of algorithms. And then I believe that it is important for us to understand some subsets or some approaches within machine learning, meaning what we call supervised learning and unsupervised learning. Basically, we have as inputs huge amounts of data. This data can be structured, meaning that it has the columns and the rows, or it can be fragmented and unstructured. And then by supervised learning, it means that during the process of calibrating the algorithm, meaning this is good, this is not good, or this is what an A letter looks like, a B letter looks like, and something like that, you have someone or another algorithm training, right, the learning algorithm, the machine learning algorithm, so it is subject to some kind of supervision, okay? But in unsupervised learning, this is different because the algorithm learns by itself, meaning it identifies the clusters, the categories. You don't have to provide all the feedback for the algorithm. I'm oversimplifying here, but this is something that we need to understand, supervised and unsupervised learning, especially because, as you can see, from common sense, unsupervised learning algorithms pose major risks, right? Because we are delegating the feature identification to the algorithm, and we need to inspect, we need to make sure that the results meet some minimum quality standards. It's not that we don't have to do that for supervised learning algorithms, but then, and also we have another term, which is deep learning, meaning that and this is something that was developed in this century, in the 21st century, it's not that old, is a set of techniques that provides the ability for the algorithm to identify what are the good features for a given result. Meaning, let's say that someone needs a loan and goes to the bank, and then you have your credit worthiness model, something like that, your credit risk model, and then you say, okay, I'm going to check your income, I'm going to check your current debt, your age, or whatever. You have the features that are important, and over time you can train your algorithm to say, oh, people with that kind of income, with that age, or that kind of debt levels, they are good for loans, or they're not they should not give a loan to that person, something like that. But then with deep learning, it's kind of different, right? You don't have predefined features and identify and recognize patterns for these features. You ask the algorithm, what are the key features for a good person, so I can minimize the risks for giving them a loan. Okay, so you delegate some key decisions to the algorithm, and this is kind of an idea of what deep learning is. So basically, all of this existed before ChatGPT, before the boom in the late 2022. But these days we have additional definitions, meaning generative AI, right? Which are the algorithms that provide outputs that are human-like text, audio, and sounds, images and videos, right? We have all these fancy tools creating deepfakes, AI slop, and all these things. Basically, it's the idea of creating plausible and human-like content, right? And generating this content. And finally, within the, not exactly within, but related to the generative AI techniques, we have the so-called LLMs, large language models, meaning that, and you mentioned that in your introduction, right? We have these models that are fed with data, and they try to predict what is the most probable token, what is the most probable word after a given sentence, providing a context, what comes next. Just like, let's say you get a baby and say, oh, this is mama, 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 and you point to the mother of the baby, and then, oh, someday he's going to put a finger and then, oh, mama, right? Something like that. So you train the model to learn by example, and you do that with huge amounts of data collected over the internet and from specified sources. So I believe that I provided some initial ground here of what it is: machine learning, rule-based algorithms, supervised learning, unsupervised learning, deep learning, generative AI, and large language models. I believe these are the key concepts that anyone that wants to discuss these topics should grasp.
Fantastic. And I have a question, because I'm too lay a person. I'm just a mortal user of AI. And when you mention all of these examples that you just described, very well described, these they have to do with coding, or it has
in what way you
nothing
mean
to
coding?
do with that? Because I don't know if coding meaning something, how these
I think you get it.
machines. Yeah.
I
Okay.
think
So
you get it. Coding
okay.
is
So
like,
I'm probably having a wrong idea of coding. Okay, you can.
no, I don't. I think you have the right idea. It's just that it's for a layperson, it's kind of difficult to understand what happens inside a computer, right?
Right.
So a code, the proper, I think that the most appropriate term is would be an algorithm, right? Which is a set of instructions for a computer to follow to get a given result, provided certain input arguments. Okay, so
Okay.
we can have algorithms that are very detailed for everything that you have to do. Okay,
Okay.
and we can have kind of like meta algorithms, meaning that, okay, this is your mission, but I'm not going to tell you what to do. You're going to deliver the results. You're going to produce the output based on a given data structure. And then we have these special data structures that somehow in the beginning, they were inspired in our in the networks within our brain. This is why they are called neural networks.
Yes, this is, for me, this is so strange and so
Esoteric.
instructing. Yes.
Yeah, okay. So, there is a quote from Arthur C. Clarke, the writer of 2001: Space Odyssey, and it says something like, "Technology is the closest that we can get to magic." Right?
Wow.
And
Yes. Yeah.
I
No,
agree
that's
with them.
perfect.
Yeah, because it's
Yes.
kind of magic. The
Yes.
idea is that you have these networks within your brain, and over time, your experience is it fills these networks with some weights, meaning that, oh, if I taste something sweet, that's going to happen. If I taste something bitter, this other result is going to happen. It's just like you are creating some kind of a weighted graph, a weighted networks, meaning that if you want to achieve a given result, you are going to follow this path and the cost will be this, and you're going to follow that other path and the cost will be that, and so forth. And you can go through a minimal cost approach, something like that.
Okay.
It's not that our brain works just like that, but think about traveling, the multiple ways, the multiple paths that you can go from A to B, right? You can go through these cities, but then the speed limits are lower and you go, this distance is higher, but then you can go through faster and something like that. So you have a decision algorithm and you can get a result, and you have weights that you have to consider in order to get the results, and you have trade-offs and things like that. So basically, there are data structures, special data structures called neural networks, and there are many ways to implement these data structures. And this is important because when we feed these models with data, basically what we are doing is we are calibrating these networks with a given set of weights. There are like billions or trillions of weights in these models that we use today. It's complexity is huge. Okay, so this is something that you don't need. There's another quote that you don't need to understand how a clock works to tell the time. Right. So but I think that lawyers should understand this, because one of the major risks involved in AI is opacity, right? And imagine that you're going to implement a system to provide investment advice, or to, let's say, indicate that someone is eligible to parole or not, right? You cannot, we as a society, at least I think, and I believe you agree, we cannot accept a yes or no system and, oh, no, because the machine said no, right? We need some kind of a reasoning behind that decision.
This is sensitive. Yes.
Yes, this is important. And this is what we call explainable AI, meaning that all the reasoning steps, they should be disclosed, but that is not an easy thing to do, because all of these models and the complexity and the inner structures and its a probabilistic nature, it's not that easy to say, oh, we got the result because of that. Or at least we can say, if these parameters were slightly better, and then we can go and provide these other results instead of this. And there's a huge field for lawyers and auditors and anyone interested in compliance to try to understand how we can make these algorithms explainable, right? So for that, for those interested in this, I believe that understanding what is a neural network, what are transformers, and all these technologies, I think it's a deep dive is quite worth for this, for whoever is interested in explainable AI.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, that's a lot to take in. And how are, and now moving on to financial, the day-to-day reality of financial. So how are financial institutions and market actors applying AI technologies in day-to-day operations? I mean, what are use cases, and what use cases stand out as the most transformative in this field?
Okay, so as I told you before, artificial intelligence was not created by OpenAI and ChatGPT. So there are many applications that go back to the 90s, right? So we have some the quantitative funds, right? The quant algorithm, the quant traders. There's a nice book. I believe the author is Scott Patterson. The book is called The Quants. It's from 2007 or something like that, just before the 2008 crisis. And it tells how about this fancy Silicon Valley traders. They use algorithms and they are smart and they get rich because of these algorithms. And also some brainiacs in the 90s, they created a hedge fund called Long-Term Capital Management. And for a while, they earned a lot of money. But then with the crisis in the late 90s, there was a collapse in their fund. And there is a book about that. It's called When Genius Failed. So the applications of AI in the financial markets and statistics in financial markets and what we call quantitative trading. They go several decades ago, okay? And also, another application is besides algorithm trading is in market surveillance. I believe that this is one of the major developments right now. So let me give you an example. So we have the compliance routines by the financial institutions, and usually these compliance routines are quite reactive, meaning that from time to time you go over there and create a sample, and then you check if any law, any rule was broken or something like that. But then right now we have the ability to go to create larger samples, or even to provide a comprehensive, or we can analyze all data these days, and we can expect patterns. We can try to anticipate some anomalies. I believe that these new algorithms and these new processing capabilities, they can create a much more proactive compliance rather than a reactive compliance. And we have seen some companies within the field called RegTech, right? Regulatory technology, just like fintechs. There is this subfield called RegTech. And I believe these companies, they are trying to leverage AI so compliance can be more effective, can reduce costs, even though they are processing larger amounts of data, even though they are inspecting complex patterns, and they're doing much more with less money. They're becoming more efficient. And I believe this is one of the major applications in finance, right, for a proactive compliance. Also, we have the so-called robo-advisors, meaning that these algorithms can execute your trades, right? Or they can provide financial advice, meaning, can we replace a human given financial advice to a given investor? Maybe. Maybe for a low-cost subscription, we can have this WhatsApp or Messenger agent for a person that is not willing to pay a lot. Let's say someone has a few thousand reais or something like that, but this person needs a service, and a customized service, a tailor-made service would be quite costly for it. And even if someone could provide such service, they would prefer providing a higher ticket service. So AI can promote financial inclusion, meaning that people with lower net worths can access personalized recommendations based on several data points, meaning the bills, the value of the bills that they pay, their social connections, geolocalization. Even if they don't have a formal income, but they have some money to invest, we can have these algorithms providing financial advice to them. And also we can provide reports, right? Let's say we can process like 10 or 15 reports for a given sector or for a given company, and we can create like a consolidated report with sentiment analysis, meaning, the consensus of the markets is this, the contradictory thinking the alternative thinking lines of thoughts are those, and something like that. Okay, so in summary, we have AI applications for algorithm trading, for RegTech, or to improve the compliance and market surveillance. And we have applications for financial advice and promoting financial inclusion in the financial markets. These are some initial applications, but I believe that in the near future, we are going to see some AI native companies, meaning that they are not doing what we currently do better with AI, but they are doing totally new things with AI, things that they are meeting needs. They're going to meet needs that we already have, but the current solutions, they are not currently addressing, or they're not currently addressing quite well. Meaning OpenAI, let's say, before OpenAI, we had this artificial intelligence solutions like IBM Watson, right? We had the Deep Blue playing chess and things like that. But nobody thought that if we could provide something like a search box that you could ask a question for this magical oracle, and then you would come up with a solution to your problems. You could analyze your, I don't know, anything that you put over there. You could provide some summary of a book. This is a need that we always had. But at that time, we were unable to formulate that need. So I believe that in the near future, we are going to see innovations like that.
Yes, but the ones you mentioned on the robot, the RegTech, and so this is not about futuristic scenarios. These are use cases already transforming workflows today in the financial.
That's correct.
So
yes,
it's
that's
striking.
Correct.
Yes, and what used to take teams of analysts now happens in seconds with AI, and. Whenever technology transforms at this scale, I would say that regulation is never far behind, or shouldn't be, or shouldn't be, okay, or shouldn't be. So, as someone who has worked closely with regulatory authorities, how do you see global regulators addressing the specific risks and opportunities posed by AI in finance? Are there any models or legislative frameworks that you consider particularly effective?
Okay. I don't think we have enough data and track record to conclude that if any framework is more effective than other. I think we are in the early stages of both AI and AI regulation. Most regulatory initiatives, they come from a fear, right? And we know that things can go wrong, but sometimes we don't even know what are the risks that AI poses. Okay, if we don't understand the technology, if we don't know the probabilistic nature of the answer, we don't know how the models are trained, who trains the model, what are the criteria for saying that this data is good, this result is good, this is not good. I believe that we cannot have a qualified discussion about risks and regulation. But unfortunately, we have seen some people jumped in because they want to be like it's not the early adopters, but they want to be the pioneering voices, so they can be like in this I don't know, this references in the area. But I believe that most of us are now in the dark, but we have some initial approaches. So before talking about the specific regimes or approaches, so to speak, let me try to explain to you what I believe are the major risks posed by AI in its current state of art, right? In the present. I believe the first risk is what we call the bias, right? Not only discrimination bias, but these models, they are trained with data. And the data that we provide, they can somehow favor some results instead of others. So sometimes think about, for example, in this insurance industry, that people with early ages, they are high risk, or women or men. Some people have this debates, who drives better and things like that. Or in criminal law, for instance, some people from some social classes or some ages, they are more prone to commit crimes and things like that. So if we put biased data in the models, the results will be biased. And also these models can amplify this bias. And this
Yes,
is
that's
not a
the
good thing.
problem.
These models can amplify this bias.
Not only replicating, but amplifying. So this is the danger.
Exactly. Because we trust the machine, right? The machine can do no wrong. And now we try to just delegate the legitimacy of the decision and everything to the machine. No, it's no longer with me. right? It's a machine. So if the machine is telling me to put in treason, poor people or some race, then that's okay because it's a machine. I'm not racist. The machine cannot be racist, right? And that's a problem, right? And also, it not only in terms of race or discrimination, but also bias can amplify some risks, meaning, let's say, systemic risks. So if all the algorithms, they use the same data and they use the same criteria for making decisions, let's say if in any given time, the Brazilian central bank decides to lower the interest rates or increase the interest rates, and if everyone interprets or acts on a given data point with exaggeration, that
At the
could
same time,
cause at the same time
you
that
get the
could
ripple
cause
effect.
a ripple effect, like a black swan event or something like that, a flash crash, and that would not be good because everyone is biased to that given action or something like that. So I believe that bias could cause social problems and systemic risks. So I believe this is the first risk. And this is an opportunity for lawyers, right? Because these companies, they don't think about hiring lawyers when they are training their models. I believe that lawyers and people, compliance experts, they should be hired to tell which data can be used to train this model based on some ethical criteria or some regulations, based on the very risk that we are trying to avoid or at least to mitigate. Meaning, is this set of data licensed? Is it copyrighted? Can it produce biased result? Is it biased? Okay, so I believe that there's room, there are opportunities. I don't think that big techs, they they are diligent in that sense, but they should be. These companies, they should hire lawyers to somehow be gatekeepers of data quality. And I think this is
Yes.
one major risks. But
The
and
problem is,
also,
I'm sorry.
go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, I would say that the problem is that lawyers are only called when the problem arises, when you already have a problem.
Yes.
Usually, not this preventive legal
Yes,
advice.
exactly.
But you were saying?
Oh, we were talking about the risk. So we have this bias risk, the systemic risk, meaning that it's, given we are using algorithms to make decisions, somehow, sometimes we can amplify some actions. We can have this kind of herd effects, right? Herd behavior. And also we have risks of intellectual property violations, meaning that we can train models based on data that, I mean, the definition of fair rule is still not very consolidated for AI training models. For training AI models, I don't know what is the frontier, what is the limit between fair use and unfair abuse. And also another risk is frauds and scams and cyber attacks, right? Because AI can create new ways to perform phishing, create deepfakes with audio, video, and things like that. And also these very AI systems that can be subject to a specific attacks. So there's one we call data poisoning, meaning that you can try to infect this model with bad data so we can provide bad results. And also you can tweak the model to with minor inputs, with some specific inputs to provide bad results and things like that. So there are risks of amplifying current risks by using AI, and there are new risks because these systems, they provide new vulnerabilities. So, and I'm telling you all this because most of the debates, the public debates on AI, they merely scratch the surface of these risks. Okay, so I think that before creating regulations and telling people what needs to be done, what should be done, we first need to have the humility to understand the object, the very object that we are trying to regulate. And I don't think that we did that properly at this time.
We didn't
So,
get there. We haven't got
yes, no. Okay.
And,
and
when you
my
meant
approach.
okay, okay,
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah. My question, no, it's not a question. It's more reflection. When we speak of risk, we have to speak of liability, because risk and liability, they
Yes.
should walk hand in hand. And this is another problem, because who's going to be held liable for something wrong, or for damages, or for an injury? And I think there's a long way still to be covered in this sense. And you were saying something else. I interrupted you. I don't know if
No,
you
it's
you
just
have
that you
completed.
asked me about the frameworks, right? I answered another different question that you asked, because I prefer to talk about the risk. But then about the frameworks, there's, well, I could say that we have two major lines of thought, two major approaches. We have the European Union approach, which is comprehensive. It's very detailed, and for financial markets at least, most of the activities in financial markets can be considered high risk, meaning that we need to have higher levels of transparency, audit rights, and we have several obligations that need to be fulfilled by the companies, and also it is going to impose several compliance costs for companies, even those that are not located in Europe, but if they impact somehow EU citizens, they must comply with these rules. And I think that in the past, Europe exported manufactured items, industrial products, and now they are exporting regulations, right? And here, Brazil, we are still exporting commodities and importing
Here.
regulations these days. But anyway, I don't believe that the European approach is the best way for us to do now, because I think they are anticipating several risks, there may be blind spots in the future as the technology evolves. I understand the principles, I understand the preoccupations, but I think that we need to have some room for innovation. And
Right.
in the United States, in that sense, provides a more flexible approach, meaning that they don't have a single bill for AI.
At the
They
federal
don't
level.
have it.
At the
Yes,
federal
they don't
level,
have
they don't. Yeah,
at least
that's
at this time. At this time, go ahead.
Yeah, no, but you can continue, because that's a great segue to our next question. Because I would say,
Oh, okay.
what are your views on
Okay.
the regulation? How regulation differs internationally between the U.S., the
Okay.
EU, Brazil, or you name it,
Okay.
Japan, and what lessons can we take
Okay.
can we draw from these differences?
I think that at this time, we could see these two major approaches: the European approach and the North American approach, US approach, meaning that we can try to use the current laws to regulate this phenomena until we have very specialized risks. And then, for example, the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission in the US, anything related to the application of AI in financial markets and securities markets, we can apply the SEC rules, meaning there's something called AI washing, the company saying, exaggerating the AI capabilities, and just like greenwashing, then we apply the SEC rules. And also, if we have risks that are amplified by algorithms when they are trading or providing bad financial advice, we can also apply the SEC rules for the kind of behavior. And I think that for now, a company that wants to put a model in the market, or all of these AI startups, even the billion-dollar startups, they don't need to get an authorization to do that. They don't need to go through a screening process indicating that their activity is low, medium, or high risks. There is no bureaucracy for them to go to the market. This is the US approach. But then in the European approach, you need to do some homework in terms of what is the risk level, what are the controls that you need to have, mostly regarding transparency and leading the algorithms and providing explainable results. And you have to be compliant by design. And I believe that Brazil, at this time, we have a draft bill, and it's strongly inspired by the European bill and the European approach, but it's not granular in terms of the rules. It's more principles based, and I think that there's a lot of way to go before we have a national bill. Probably we are going to have, like it's always the case in Brazil, we're gonna need a scandal or a major public outcry, and then the congressman will put some law in place without worrying about the consequences. This is probably what's going to happen. But at this time, the idea in Brazil is that if you're going to provide AI services, then you're going to have to comply with some minor obligations. You're going to have to get some authorization, some license, and in this licensing process, your risk will be assessed, and depending on the risk level, you're going to have a different set of obligations, something like that. I don't know which authority is going to be responsible for this enforcement. I believe there's some competition already in place. Is it going to be the agency responsible for the data protection rules? Is it going to be the competition authority? Is it going to be a new agency? We don't know about that yet. There are lots of questions, and at this time, I think we are in a period of asking questions and instead of providing answers, and we need to put all our effort in asking the right questions to regulate this. So, in summary, either we try to, based on what we know, try to create a lot of obligations and try to prevent companies to go to the market before going through a screening process or a risk assessment process, which is the European approach, or you can go ahead and let's do it. Kind of like better say sorry than to ask for license, right? To something like that. There's a quote saying that there's I don't remember the quote, but anyway, it's better. Probably you know that it's better to ask for forgiveness than to ask permission, something like that.
Yes,
I believe this
yes.
is the US
I know what
approach.
you mean. I know what you mean. Yes, I see.
Okay.
Yeah, that's quite a tricky aspect of that all, because we are all working with on cross-border contracts and in millions of contracts. And these
Yes.
contracts, they travel, they travel through jurisdiction, from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. And well, while everything is okay, but when we have a problem, when something happens, when we have a default or this is a tricky one.
Some breach,
And
yeah, some contractual breach, whatever.
yes, a contractual breach, even a breach of warranty sometimes,
Yes.
even that it is consequential. I mean, I think the crucial point is that regulators may be balancing innovation with systemic stability, and
Yes.
it seems like the challenge isn't only setting rules, but
Yes.
keeping them agile enough to follow the tech space, which is at high speed.
Yes. Yes. And I
Right?
believe there are two challenges here. First is that we do not have public regulations yet. Okay. And right now, companies, they need to invest in AI. They need to contract AI services. So I think that there are some key aspects that we need to worry when we create such contracts, since the regulations, they are not in place. And before we delve into those aspects, let's say that this is a global law podcast, right? And I don't think that right now we have a more global subject than AI, because we have data that's generated all over the internet in many countries under many data protection rules. And this data is the seed for training all these AI models that are created by different developers in different countries, in different companies. We had quarters in different countries that provide services for companies in several other countries. So it's a huge international law problem, and we're probably going to have some treaties, some, I don't know, some international organisms to rule all that thing. But before we have these institutions in place, I believe that the only way for us to address these risks and to have a minimum level of legal certainty is to worry about things like, let's say, risk allocation among jurisdiction. When you are contracting an AI service, an AI company, you should have a risk matrix in your contract, meaning that in this jurisdiction we are going to be subject of these laws, and the provider of the solution is going to be responsible. The burden would be with the provider of the solution, or it would be with me, the deployer, the user of the solution. There's always this trade-off: who's going to be liable, right? The provider of the solution, a third party, the client, or whatever it is. So you're going to have you're going to need a risk matrix for allocating risks among jurisdiction. Also, you need to provide a very clear liability and indemnification clauses, meaning who's going to pay for audits, for regulatory fines, for software fixes, and any other costs other than damages, right? Explicit damage to people, you're going to have to do that. In addition, most important clauses would be audit rights and transparency requirements, meaning you probably would need something close to a nutrition label for your AI algorithms, right? A fact sheet, meaning this is how this model was trained. These are the use cases. These are the limitations. These are the parameters, and etc. So you know exactly what you're buying. And also you need some change management clauses, meaning as this algorithm evolves, we need to be notified of these updates. We need to roll back these updates if they somehow impact our business. So it's a living organism, right? You don't buy a software that is static. It evolves over time. So in summary, and also you're going to have some data quality and compliance requirements, meaning that you will need assurance that all the data that has been used to train the models, they were licensed, and there were no copyright infringements and things like that. And
this is so difficult
to
to ascertain.
Yes. This is why.
At least I believe right now it's impossible.
This is why you're here. So I think that the goal of this episode is somehow to highlight the fact that someone needs to do that. It's difficult, but it's not impossible. And if we have people who have experience in due diligence and audit and compliance and anything in all of these areas, if they learn about AI, if they learn about what's going on in these companies, and if they provide legal advice for companies that are buying AI algorithms, or to companies that are somehow investing in AI, I believe there's high value to be provided for such clients as a legal profession. Okay.
Yes.
So in summary, before laws are in place and in action, I think that in force, I think that we need to address all these risks through contracts, to agreements. Okay.
Yeah, well, when you compare the jurisdictions and the statutes, that comparison really highlights the patchwork that lawyers must navigate in cross-border deals.
Yes.
If something goes wrong, this is the only. This should not be the only scenario where we come into place. We should be included during the whole stages since the very beginning, so as to avoid problems. And it also shows how essential it is for advisors to act as, let's say, translators between legal cultures. And even with rules in place, risks, they remain. So let's close with the flip side, because what do you believe are the major risks, such as you already mentioned bias, but fraud, vulnerability, systemic vulnerabilities that lawyers and financial institutions must anticipate, or should anticipate when deploying AI in capital markets? I think you touched already on that, but how can legal professionals add value in managing these risks?
Okay. So let me try to provide a wrap up of this episode, right? We talked a
Yes.
lot and about several
Although
things.
there are so many things I would like to ask you. So I have a
Yes, I
list here
understand.
of things that, we have to make.
Maybe we can have a follow-up episode based on
yes,
the
we have to
questions
do.
from the
Yes,
audience and things like
yes,
that.
season
Who
two,
knows?
season two. Yes, another episode.
Okay, just call me.
Yes,
And
my
then
pleasure.
I think that to wrap up this episode, I believe that well, in the future, the way that we learn is going to change dramatically, and I believe that in any profession, the key skill will be to think strategically and problem solving skills, meaning that you can understand the given problem, you can try to anticipate the possible solutions, the outcomes, the side effects of each solutions. You have some kind of critical thinking and critical reasoning for problem solving. I think this is the most important skills for us to develop, because we need to ask the right questions for these models. So this is the first actionable takeaway from this conversation, meaning you need to be able to ask the right questions. AI is going to be part of our lives. It is already part of our lives, an indispensable part of our lives. And we need to, there's no use for an oracle if you don't know what to ask for this oracle, right? And the second skill is that we need to check everything that is algorithms provide to us, the output of these algorithms. There's something called retrieval augmented generation.
Yes, that's one of the questions I had.
One of the questions. Okay,
Yeah,
so
the
basically
RAGs.
is the idea that this model is a kind of a junior associate, a bright junior associate that sometimes makes mistakes. So we need to review everything, and whenever it provides a conclusion or something like that, it needs to be properly referenced in a source. So you force the model to go to a reliable set of sources, and key information is mapped to the sources. So you mitigate the risk of what we call hallucination, which is the result that these models, they are designed to provide plausible, even confident answers, and sometimes they're just made up. We have seen that, right? In made up cases,
many times.
made up provisions and everything. So you need to check the results, and you need to put your human effort with the results. So I think that the future of the lawyer professional, of the law professional, is going to be less than a robot and more than a human. It's going to be what we call a cyborg lawyer, meaning that you're going to be an augmented lawyer. You're going to be someone who has several junior associates with statutes from many countries, with case law, with a huge number of cases that, in other ways, in the past, it would take decades of experience of a professional to grasp all these cases and things like that. It's not that the experienced professional is going to be less valuable. I believe that the experienced professional, its value, his or her value, it relies on the ability to ask the right questions, to identify the problems. The first skill that I mentioned earlier, right? The ability to grasp a problem, to tackle a problem and create solutions from this problem. The reasoning, the creative process. I believe AI can be creative. Yes, that's sure. That's true. But I think that at least at this time, it's going to rival with human creativity. Human creativity is not going to disappear anytime soon, even though we have signs of the opposite in the current past. So, in summary, I think the future of the law professional is going to be a cyborg lawyer, right? And human an augmented human with several tools, and we need to understand these tools. You don't need to become a programmer. You don't need to become a computer scientist, but you need to understand what's going on. What are the data sources, how the models has been trained, what are the limitations, how can you examine the results, how much trust that you can put in this result.
Yes.
You need to review everything. So I believe it's common sense, but we should repeat that as long as people think that AI is a black box that will solve all the problems. That's not the case.
Right. And well, AI is only as safe as the frameworks we build around it. So
Yes.
it's so like lawyers, we should see lawyers not just as gatekeepers, but as risk managers and value creators. And I think it's very interesting that you mentioned the risk metrics to be included in contracts. I think that should avoid so much dispute. Yeah. And yes, and that everything that you said, that ties beautifully with what we do here on the Global Lawyer, I just mentioned, exploring how legal professionals can shape the future of markets and technology, and not just react to it. I'm sorry that we have to wrap up things up here, but it's because I have many questions, and I would also ask you about the agents, the agenticity.
Oh.
Okay, we cannot talk about that later on because
Sure.
I could be here for a long time. It's been such an inspiring exchange, Professor. Your perspective has been a gift to all of us listening. And for you, everyone, as we've seen today, that generative AI is already reshaping the way we think about legal services, right? So the models may be our statute books, as we mentioned at the beginning, but it's the services and the professionals who know how to use them that bring those books to life. And just like in the law, it's not enough to have the code on the page. You need the craft, you need the judgment, and the human touch to make it meaningful. So that's the future we're heading into, one where lawyers can tackle both legal and digital statute books. And when this happens, these will be the real, this is when we all be really game changers. That's my final point. And just to add the words of Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes, he once said that the life of the law has not been logic, it has been experience. So I believe today's conversation has been a perfect example of that. Experience, insight, and vision guiding us through the challenges and opportunities of AI in the legal universe. Thank you, Professor Isac Costa, for sharing your wisdom. And thank you all joining us here on The Global Lawyer. Until next time, let's keep bridging law, business, and innovation, one conversation at a time. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.